for many of you who follow my content, you're obviously going to be interested in self-improvement. You're going to be interested in, improving yourself as it relates to your performance, to your work, to your overall growth, not just in your fitness goals. And that will probably lead you down a path, quite inevitably, of looking at things like spiritual growth, things like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, or The Power of the Subconscious Mind, things like Think and Grow Rich, Law of Attraction, maybe even you have looked into at certain points in your life. I have no problem with any of those concepts as they're written, as they are probably intended to be interpreted. I do, however, have some pet peeves with how I often see them applied, particularly even among friends of mine, if I be honest, because a lot of the time I am surrounding myself with people who fit that high performer category. They're people who want to do well in the material world, which I am fully behind and I fully support. But as the main man of Christianity himself said, Mr. Christ, it's something along the lines of what gaineth a man to, what benefit a man, I think, to gaineth, all the gaineth, benefiteth, all the old English. I can't get that quite right, but what benefits a man to gain everything in the material world at the expense of his soul? Something to that effect, right? And I see this quite a bit with people who are, bought into those concepts along Power of the Subconscious Mind, Law of Attraction, etc., where it can almost turn into this kind of vibrational fascism, right? Where if somebody says something, maybe even if it's a joke or it's something that doesn't align with this spiritual perfectionism of being completely enlightened, that those people can almost become quite condescending when it comes to, oh, that doesn't align with my vibrational frequency, I don't align with this, etc., etc. That's one of the things that I've just seen, and it's funny because it kind of defeats the purpose of what one is trying to achieve. So if you think about it, the whole point of spiritual growth, spirituality, is to humble oneself, to realize that we are all one. And in a sense, the material world is kind of meaningless. And yes, you play the game, and for sure you try and win at that game because it's just fun. And what else are we meant to do on this world if everything is meaningless, but also infinitely meaningful? Why not try and win, right? When you can't quite square that circle and we're stuck here anyway. Try to win, absolutely, but it's when people fall into this perfectionism, this obsessive compulsive need to only have positive speech, positive thoughts, positive, quote unquote, positive people around them. That's where I find this to actually be a bit like everyone's drinking the Kool-Aid. And funnily enough, they are defeating the purpose and falling into their ego, because they've now created a separation between them and everyone else. They've in their mind separated themselves from the homeless guy on the street who's lost his mind. I actually make it a point to go out of my way to give to people who I see like that. And the reason is not because I'm some great, amazing person. It's just because I realize that at some point in my life, I might need the same kind of charitable favor that I extend to them if I make a fuck up in my life, which I will inevitably do. I will fuck up again in my life. Now, the magnitude of my fuck ups hopefully are getting less and less as I get older and I mature, but I will make mistakes. That's just part of the human condition. And I hope that other people will have the same charitable outlook as I do when it comes to people that I see on the street. I make it a point to go out of my way, in particular, to give to two people that I frequently see around my city. And again, I'm not saying that makes me some kind of great person. It's just there are things I would like to see in the world if I ever fall on hard times. It's actually quite a selfish act, and I think all forms of giving are ultimately selfish. But That's to say that I kind of see a bit of myself in people like that. You know, I've struggled quite a bit with my mental health over the years. Oh, sorry, the wind just did a number on my phone. This tripod that I have is rather flimsy, but it's great because I love to just be mobile, so I like a minimal setup. But yeah, what I was saying there is I've struggled quite a bit, and most people who actually do find any kind of self-development work or spirituality have struggled quite a bit in their life at some point. And it is quite I guess, perplexing to me when I see people who have struggled then turn their back on people who are struggling now because they don't want to fall into quote unquote low vibrational energy. I find that whole hierarchy of consciousness that a lot of people fall into, you know, when they're talking about self-development, spirituality, that thing needs to be fucking flipped on its side horizontally, man. It's not like there's these this hierarchy of different levels of consciousness or emotions. I think that's a load of BS. Flip it on its side. There are different car lanes. You're moving forward no matter what. And yeah, sometimes you might feel shameful. You might feel guilty. You might feel angry. You might feel prideful. Whatever those different states of consciousness are. I think that if you stop putting them on a hierarchy like one is better than the other, then you can easily just switch lanes as you continue to move forward. Think of it like a multiple lane freeway where you can just flit seamlessly between them as long as you recognize that you're in a lane you don't want to be in. And I think that a lot of people who are struggling, who are quote unquote low vibe or whatever the spiritual Nazis want to call them, are simply in a lane that they're not aware that they have the ability to get out of. And I'm not saying for a moment that people need to give all of their time and all of their energy and all of their attention to the suffering of the world. But it's just an observation that I have. It's a pet peeve of mine when people go, it's basically two sides of the same coin, right? Where people are in their ego and that brings them to negative outcomes. But then they go on to the opposite side of the same coin and get really into their ego and holier than thou when it comes to their own spirituality, their own vibrational energy, and how much they want to keep themselves clean. It's, in a sense, it's the opposite of what I aspire to be. I would actually like to think that I can reach a level of self-control, self-power, self-discipline, groundedness, that I could see the absolute worst in the world, look it straight in the face and help people get out of those situations and not just avoid it out of fear of falling into whatever quote unquote frequency they're in. Anyway, that's just a little side tangent rant that has absolutely nothing to do with fitness or fat loss. It's just the consequence of being an online coach where you've got too much time on your hands to think. Yeah, I guess all of the ancient Greek philosophers were guys who were ripped, you know. So first I got to get ripped, then I got to form my own philosophical teachings, and then hopefully I'll be the subject of a statue one day in the future. Yeah, all right, now I have a lust for power. Fallen back into the ego. I've no idea where this is going. Anyway, rant over. Enjoy the rest of your week.